I'm Janet Porter. I'm a retired principal of Student Services with the York Region District School Board. I've had a fabulous career, mostly in special education, and have loved all of the work I've done with staff, families, and our students. I have a real passion for special education, mostly because of my own son with a learning disability and the journey in that path and the advocacy that I needed to develop and the learning curve I had as a parent, I could apply to my work with families and students. So I felt that was good for me as a parent and great for me as a professional. So learning disabilities. What's the toughest part of having a learning disability? Absolutely, it's the stigma. If we could have a society that embraced the differences in people and saw the glass as half full, not half empty, and how we can balance that scale and equalize our learning opportunities for all our students, it would make life a whole lot better. Mind you, many folks do get it right away and are quite happy to accommodate and want to learn and help and recognize the strengths in our students. But it's for the folks who don't get it and refer to students with learning disabilities as lazy or they're milking the system. That's when it takes some work and some education and connection and building a relationship with that student and teacher to help them understand what the strengths and needs of that student are and what a difference the teacher can make in the life of that student. Sometimes you'll get a reaction from a teacher that it's too much work to provide accommodations for our students with learning disabilities. And initially when you look at a student's IEP, which is the Individual Education Plan, and you see that page with the environmental and testing and classroom accommodations, instructional accommodations, a teacher might think, my goodness, how on earth am I going to do this when I have a class of 25 students? But really, in the end, when this strategy or whatever the accommodations are ingrained in that teacher's practice, it is so proactively making life better for not only that student but for the teacher, because then parents are seeing success with the student is successful, and the teacher's not going back and having a student rewrite a test or counseling them later to figure out what they did wrong or why they didn't get it. When you're doing those strategies and accommodations up front to help the student understand and learn how they need to learn, you're just saving a whole pile of problems from not even developing. So it really is to everyone's advantage to address them right away, be open and honest and sharing with the other students in the class so they understand why Johnny needs to have more time on a test. I always use the example about if a student needs glasses, we put glasses on them. We don't ask the student to look at the blackboard harder without their glasses, because they're certainly not going to see that blackboard any better without their glasses on. Just like any student with a learning disability, if we say, well, read it again, try harder, not really going to make a difference. It's the accommodations and the teacher's compassion and connectedness to that student that really make the difference. As a previous special ed teacher, I would often share with parents the psych report that would identify a student of a diagnosis of a learning disability. And parents do go through a grieving process when they understand and receive this information. And I always try to help parents understand that they are going through that kind of process and that they need to cry and grieve in private, because their reaction to that diagnosis of their child's learning disability will greatly influence how their child perceives themselves and will be able to use their strengths to move forward with a learning disability. And parents do struggle because often, especially I've noticed with dads, they'll say, well, I was fine, my son or daughter will be fine too, I survived okay. And so there is a little bit of denial that can happen, and denial by, even a student can be in denial, but certainly denial by student, staff, and parents. And that's a real challenge, because in that phase of not understanding why or refusing to understand why, there can be some real challenges that that child will face in the classroom and in the schoolyard. And that's really around the social interaction and the negative stigma. It's not so much if a child is going to get a C or B, but it's when other kids reject that child or make fun of the child. That is the hardest moment for any parent to cope with and really help correct or improve on. So I think if parents can embrace a child for their individual strengths and needs, and look at the supports that are available in the school system as positive, have a really close partnership and work with the school, open, honest communication, good things will come out of that partnership where the student is the winner of that situation. And that's really what it's all about, the student.
Taylor, thank you so much for making time to assist us with this new documentary.
I'm more than happy to help.
What can you tell us about the term dyslexia?
The term dyslexia was first used by a German ophthalmologist in 1877 to describe a behavior in which otherwise normal individuals seem to have a great difficulty extracting meaning from print.
As I'm sure you know, there has been much discrepancy over the diagnosis of dyslexia versus diagnosing an overall learning disability. What advice can you offer to new teachers and EAs?
For teachers and EAs, the issue is not so much whether dyslexia is real. Most professionals agree that there are individuals who, although otherwise physically and intellectually normal, are unable to extract meaning from print or to produce written text in a manner that is age appropriate.
Before we finish, is there any other general information you feel new teachers should know surrounding dyslexia?
The simple reality is that dyslexia and learning disability are not one inclusive term. Dyslexia describes a specific special need associated with language development, while learning disability has a far broader application, including both language difficulties and other non-language based learning problems.
Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.